Welcome to another episode of Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton. And then on this episode, we're going to focus on the quarterbacks in the division in the AFC South. That would be Cam Ward, Trevor Lawrence, Daniel Jones. Who was the other quarterback there, folks? You going to name him? I said CJ Stroud. Okay, there we go. All right. Well, anyway, we're going to talk about the four quarterbacks in the AFC South. I was just having a little fun with y'all. I got to have a little fun. But anyway, we're going to do that and kind of talk about them and what they're looking, what the expectations and things like that are out there for them this season. But before we get started in this show, I definitely want to address a couple serious things that happened recently. First, I want to say address Brandon Clark. Brandon Clark, the forward from from the Memphis Grizzlies, was found passed away at the age of 29 years old. They're still trying to gather the facts, so I'm not going to be irresponsible and say, hey, it's this, it's that, the other. I don't know. But, it was something between him and whoever was there, or him and himself pretty much there, that they found him there. But just want to, say that, rest in paradise. Want to send prayers out to his family. And, it seems like something may have been going on with him. I don't know for sure in any of those in that situation, but I just want to send well wishes out to his family and anyone out there. If you're going through something mentally, you're going through something, talk to somebody. I know it sounds simple, but a lot of times people do not talk to people when they're going through things, and it exaggerates it even more. It makes it even bigger. Please talk to somebody and go talk to your friends. Check in on your friends. Check in on your strong friends. They need it. They need it more than what you would ever think they need it as well. Rest in paradise, Brandon Clark, forward for the Memphis Grizzlies, gone too soon at 29. Now, of course, there's also Jason Collins as well. Former NBA basketball player, was the first openly gay basketball player in the NBA. He had brain cancer and he passed away as well. I believe the age of 43, I believe. Definitely rest in paradise to him. I mean, cancer is a horrible disease, and rest in paradise to him. And I just send prayers out to his family as well as they, go through this tremendous loss for them as well. Just wanted to talk about that to open up this episode. But yes, we're going to get to talking about football. And I know that, that's what a lot of people came here to talk about as well on this episode. And, like I mentioned, we're talking about all four starting quarterbacks in the NFL. So, we're going to start in Nashville with Cam Ward. Now, as far as Cam Ward, there's definitely expectations this season with, a new coaching staff and a new offensive coordinator as well. But we're going to kind of go back to last season. I'm going to kind of start off there. As far as last season, looking at his stats, of course, 2025 season, 15 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Not necessarily, a ton of different things he had going on. He had a passer rating at 80.2, 159 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, 1 versus the Seahawks, which was incredible, weaving through there and laying out across the goal line. And then the last one against the Jacksonville Jaguars, which he was injured on that play. And dealing with a shoulder injury going into the offseason. But he's looking good, y'all. That's all I can say. He's looking good. But a lot of people were worried, wondering what was going on, how was he, what was going to happen going into year 2, and some people were concerned. But one thing I will point out to you is the last 5 games for Cam Ward, he had 8 touchdown passes and 1 interception. Again, the last 5 games of the season, 8 touchdown passes, 1 interception. And also with that, he had a 60.1% completion percentage. I will say that wasn't it was the league average is roughly around 64 to 65%. So it's a little bit lower there, but he had 818 yards passing and definitely kind of showed some things to finish off this season the 2025 season for the Tennessee Titans. So what can you kind of expect for him going into the 2026 season? To me, of course, you're not going to expect the organizational instability or the questions there. You went and hired a new head coach. You went and hired an offensive coordinator that is excited to work with him as well. Both guys, by the way, talk about how hard Cam Ward works. Just from their observations from not even being around in terms of at the facility last year. So that says a lot when people not even at the facility can talk about the work ethic of Cam Ward and how it's spread across the NFL. With that being said, of course, you also got to factor in he didn't really have his number one wide receiver. Now I know folks will say, "Hey, he, Calvin Ridley, was never hasn't really played like a number one in Tennessee," or people have questions about that, but still, he was the best receiver in terms of accomplishments and things like that on this team last year. He's only the eighth person in NFL history to have three 1,000-yard seasons with three different teams. That would be the Falcons, the Jaguars, and the Titans. So that stands for something. It shows something. So to me, being without him, primarily your weapons are rookies outside of Chig Okonkwo. Yeah, and veterans that are on 1-year deals. He worked with what he had and he made some things happen. Also, just looking at he didn't necessarily just have all the weapons, and then plus the instability there with Brian Callahan calling the plays and the quarterback's coach calling the plays, and then Brian Callahan getting fired and all those things. That was a lot of instability to put around a rookie quarterback. Now, what do I expect going into this season? At this season, you think with all that instability, he had 15 touchdown passes last season. With this season, I expect at least 20 touchdown passes. I mean, he's got better and more weapons. You got to think they brought in Cornell Tate through the draft, the number 4 overall pick. They also brought in Wan'Dale Robinson from the New York Football Giants. They brought in Daniel Bellinger, again, from the New York Football Giants as well. They got more weapons there when it comes to the offensive side of the ball. And so, and then plus, look at the type of offense that Brian Daboll has been able to put out there on the field. It's definitely different. And Robert Saleh, the head coach of the Tennessee Titans, talked about how different it is. It's different to prepare for than any other offense in the NFL because it's not kind of an offshoot of the Shanahan and McVay offenses that you see with the 49ers and the Los Angeles Rams. So with that being said, a little bit more difficult offense to prepare for. So I do expect them with better weapons and the whole offseason to train and condition and prepare to be able to kind of step in and even step it up even more and take that experience he had last season and move that more into this season and continue to grow as the talented quarterback that he is. Now, one other thing I do expect to kind of get better is the fumbles. Now, last year, Cam Ward had 11 fumbles. 11 fumbles, lost 7 of them. Some of them inexcusable, where he's just holding the ball a little too loose and gets knocked out of his hand. Some of them careless as well, of course, again, doing things that you really shouldn't do. But he has to be more secure with the football. And I know that he knows that. He's talked about that, and he doesn't make any excuses for those things at all. But what you have to see in this season is him actually securing the football and not just, talking about it, being about it as well, which I'm sure he definitely is a guy that can be about it. But I look for great things to come from Cam Ward in his second season as the quarterback of the Tennessee Titans. But, we talked about expectations for Cam Ward. There's also expectations for another quarterback in this division that's kind of, I would say, but the difference here is it was a great first season for this quarterback, but it's been kind of interesting since then. And that guy is Mr. CJ Stroud. Now, as far as CJ Stroud, he definitely came in. People had questions about him when he came into the NFL and were wondering, the funny thing about it, they were wondering, could he run? Because they never saw him run. And, you never think about that with a quarterback. A lot of times they think about, hey, the arm and all those different things. But when it came to dealing with CJ Stroud, to me, the thing I looked at with him is look at the regression over time. In 2023, 63.9% completion percentage, 4,108 yards passing, 23 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. 2024, 63.2% completion percentage, 3,727 yards, 20 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Now, in the 2025 season, 64.5% completion percentage. Now, that went up, but everything else went down. Now, he had 3,441 yards, which that's lower than the previous 2 years. He had 19 touchdowns. That went down one. Now, I will say he did miss a couple of games with concussion issue. And then he had 8 interceptions, which is less than he had in 2024. But still, if you watched him in the playoffs, it looked a little scary out there. And you know what I mean if you were watching that New England game. Now, as far as just the what has been off, I mean, you gotta, you'd be crazy not to say the line issues. The line issues definitely had an effect when it came to CJ Stroud, and they tried to piece it together last year, but it just did not work, and it was not, to me, enough to actually protect that quarterback, and basically give him a fresh pocket to actually be able to maneuver. So in that aspect, it wasn't like Houston set him up in a great position to pass the football and do his thing from the pocket. Of course, you saw him sometimes running more than what you ever see him run, which that isn't CJ Stroud's game, is to take off running the football. And at one point, it got him hurt when he took a serious shot to his head. So, that's one thing when it comes to CJ Stroud. Another thing, you've got you looked at the way he played with Bobby Slowick, who was the former offensive coordinator. He is now the offensive coordinator for the Miami Dolphins. Bobby Slowick did so well with CJ Stroud that he was actually up for head coaching jobs. And the next year, boom, gets fired. So it just didn't work out. But in that, you bring in Nick Cali. Nick Cali is a guy that actually was, he's a talented. He was showed talent when he was actually with the Rams and doing different things there. However, when he got to the actual Houston Texans, it didn't look as good. It looked a little bit off. And one thing you can hope for if you're a Houston Texans fan is that this offseason, Nick Cali kind of looked at the tape and things that did and didn't work, kind of, repairs or, adjust some things, and is able to get this offense back on the tracks again. Because it looked like at times, especially when you're putting the ball in the CJ Stroud's hands, it did not look like this offense was on track. And it looked like the defense was doing things despite the offense not making things happen. Ultimately, though, it has to be on CJ Stroud to be better. I know going into last offseason, they were putting a little bit more on his plate in terms of trying to recognize things and change things, maybe at the line of scrimmage. Maybe you take some of that away if you feel like it's too much going into this season. But if they don't, you still have to understand those things. You still have to hang in that pocket. And hopefully with the additions of Wyatt Teller at guard and Braden Smith at tackle, hopefully those additions, that line is a little bit more stable. Ed Ingram coming back as well. You just hope that with another year experience for Ursery at tackle as well, you just hope that line is better, because that line is better than the Houston Texans on offense. You can get some things going, then, man, imagine that defense, as much as they were out there on the field, with some rest. Wow, that would be crazy. That defense with some rest, yeah. I don't know if anybody wants to see that defense, which is arguably the best defense in the NFL. So that's my thoughts there. Of course, he has to be better. And the three things I'll point at is the footwork. Footwork definitely got to be better with the footwork, the eye discipline, the principles, knowing what you're looking at there on the field, and knowing where your outlets are if things aren't there, and not forcing it, not trying to throw the football through a keyhole. So if you do that, you're going to end up in a dilemma for sure. Also, trust the offense. I mean, Nick Cali's got to do better to help him to trust the offense, but he has to also trust what he sees and trust what's being called as well. Those things, those have to be non-negotiables and recognized on the field. And thirdly, the run game has to help. Now, the last couple of years, they've had issues with the run game, and it is not, they did definitely go out and get David Montgomery, but it has not looked pretty. Hopefully for CJ Stroud, he does get a run game to go along with, working on his mechanics and the things that he can work on. And if he does, boy, oh boy, that Houston Texans team could be really scary, especially with some consistent offense. Now, of course, CJ Stroud, and I mentioned Cam Ward. Of course, there's going to be eyes there. There's also going to be eyes in Indianapolis. When it comes to the Indianapolis Colts, of course, you got Daniel Jones there. Jones is working his way back this season from a torn Achilles on one leg and a broken leg on the other. Yeah, that sounds like a lot because it is a lot. So, just to give you a little bit of background on Daniel Jones, he really has never played a full season his entire career. Again, he has never really played a full season his entire career. And with that being said, I mean, you're depending on him. They paid him big money, even though he has never played a full season. Again, folks, give you a little bit of stats on that. 13 games he played in 2025 season, 10 in the 2024, and 6 in the 2023 season. Yeah, not a lot of games, right? Yeah, and one of those games, I would say the 2024 season, remember, he got that one, I can give him a little bit of grace there because the Giants let him go and he was sitting on the bench with the Minnesota Vikings before coming to the Indianapolis Colts in the 2025 season. So I can definitely give him grace there in that aspect, but in all the rest of the other aspects, I've got to say, he just cannot stay on the field. So it doesn't sound that enthusiastic that he will make a full season. So with that being said, there's a particular gentleman with a rocket arm, speed, and all the tools to be a really talented quarterback that's sitting on your bench. What is his name? No, it's not Riley Leonard. It's Anthony Richardson. Yeah, I know. They told him he could seek a trade. It didn't really work out. Nobody really has went out there and said, "Hey, we want to bring Anthony Richardson in." So to me, the best thing would be is to try to make it work. Try to make it work where he currently is, which is in Indianapolis. And in my opinion, I don't think he's necessarily just a running back, but I also think he's a guy that actually, if given time and patience, he can be a talented quarterback. The thing I think that was misdiagnosed about him is thinking that if you throw him in there, he'll get the experience and boom, he'll be great. No. He's a guy that still had to learn the quarterback position. If you looked at his tape from the University of Florida, I think if you gave time and patience, and if you wanted to put him out there, you had to have the understanding that it was going to look rough at the beginning, but if 2 or 3 years in, it would look actually better. However, Colts didn't have that patience. They didn't want to have that patience. Hence, where they are in the quarterback position now. Now, I would say. He definitely would be a guy that could potentially step in there when it comes to injuries for Daniel Jones. They do have Riley Leonard, who is a former 7th-round pick from Notre Dame and also Duke University, by the way, for those that don't know. But, his value is not necessarily high, so I think you should try to give them a competition there. I know it's been discussed and talked about amongst Colts fans potentially, and maybe Colts media perhaps, and maybe even the Colts themselves. But the value is low. Not a ton of experience running that offense, but still, do you want him or do you want Riley Leonard? Hey, that could be like a tomato situation. It could be. Because even though he hasn't played, he's still been in that offense like 3 years. So it isn't like he doesn't know more of the offense than Riley Leonard at this point, unless Riley Leonard has been on a super streak of learning this offense. So that's just my thoughts in regards to that. He can still run the ball very well, which Shane Steichen does love him a running quarterback, by the way, if you didn't know. Of course, he likely could be on this team this year. So one way or another, you could potentially get some Anthony Richardson on the football field. I know Colts fans don't want to see that, being that they just paid Daniel Jones, but you could. It's possible. We could see. All right. But of course, and last but certainly not least, we have the veteran of the AFC South who has been here his entire career. That would be Trevor Lawrence. Now, consistency is key when it comes to Trevor Lawrence. Let me just point out a few things. He finished the 2025 season with a career high 29 touchdown passes. Now let's break that down, though. You got to understand he has not always been the most consistent at quarterback. I'm going to give you an example why. He finished the season with 11 touchdowns and 1 interceptions in the last 4 games. That's excellent. He was protecting the football and he was dealing. He was showing that with the things that people saw coming out of Clemson for him that made him the number 1 overall pick. And people were talking about he's a generational quarterback. That's that talk. I know that talk's long gone at this point, but that's what they were saying at that time. But what I want you to take a look at is what he did in a 4-game streak during that season where he had 5 touchdowns and 6 interceptions in, basically from November 2nd to November 23rd. So November wasn't a very memorable one for him. This is the thing that you see when it comes to Trevor Lawrence a lot. You see this a lot with him. He has high of highs and he has low of lows. The biggest thing here is consistency. Can he be consistent? Now, just to give you a few of the stats over the years, he's had 28 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. That was 2022. 2023, 21 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. 2024, 11 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Of course, he was injured that season, but it wasn't necessarily the greatest season for him anyway. Also, 2025, 29 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. 2026 with Liam Cohen. Can he find that consistency? Only time can tell. All right, and we're going to finish up this show today with what we're going to finish is it with the Touring the AFC South mailbag. This is where I answer questions from viewers from across this country of ours. I'm going to start with this question right here from Ayla Jones from Little Rock, Arkansas. Is Jacksonville still the team to beat, or has Houston surpassed them? I will tell you this. Houston, to me, is still the team to beat in this division. I will tell you that Jacksonville has had good seasons before, and then the next season turn around and fall back to the pack. The key thing for Jacksonville is being the consistency. Can they show the consistency that they showed last season, whether it's stopping the run, defensively, being opportunistic? Now, I know they won't be as opportunistic, but they still need to be a solid defense. That's the biggest thing. Offensively, can they continue on that momentum? They got brought in Jacoby Myers at the trade deadline. They got Bryce Thomas Jr. Can he cure his issues catching the football? Parker Washington as well. And are we going to see a little Travis Hunter over there sprinkled in? But, we'll see what happens. But, to me, if the Houston Texans get a even solid offense, not even a great offense, they are definitely going to be the team to beat in this division. So to me, I don't think it's necessarily Houston surpassed them. I think the Jacksonville Jaguars had a really good season last year. I'm not going to take that away from them. But I just think if Houston gets anything offensively, then yes, they will definitely surpass them. Great question, Galen. All right, next question we got. This is from Clayton Alexander from Houston, Texas. Do you think the loss of Travis Etienne in free agency will come back to bite the Jaguars in a major way this season? Now, as far as Etienne, for those that don't know, he did sign with his hometown New Orleans Saints. I think a 4-year deal with them. And for those that also don't know, it's not Etienne, it's Etienne. He said that in the press conference, and he explained why. So, if you don't wonder why I'm saying Etienne, go check out the press conference he had when he signed his contract with the New Orleans Saints. But as far as him being missing for come back to bite the Jacksonville Jaguars, I'm not sure it comes back to bite the Jacksonville Jaguars simply because I'm not sure how well he fit there in the Liam Cohen offense to begin with. And also, if you look at Liam Cohen, look at what he did in Tampa Bay before he came to Jacksonville. He had 3 different running backs, and he rotated all of them in, got them touches. Bucky Irvin, you had Rashad White. You had other guys there too, but he rotated all those guys in, got them touches, and made things happen. I think he's going to probably do some of the same things in this actual season with the Jacksonville Jaguars. With you got Rodriguez that came in from the Commanders. You got Vashal Tootin there as well. So you got some talented running backs there that can make some things happen. And if you have them there and they produce, he's going to, either ride the hot hand or he's going to rotate them in and out based on down distances, who's the hot hand, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that, ultimately, Travis Etienne, I'm sorry, could have a great season for the New Orleans Saints. However, I just don't think he was necessarily the right fit for what Liam Cohen wanted to do with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So that's my thoughts there. And we got one other question that would be from Ed Holinsky from Auburn, New York. And this is a good one, y'all. It's a good one. In your opinion, which AFC South cities have the best food? Well, I have had the privilege of going to 3 of these cities: Houston, Nashville, I live in, and going to Indianapolis. Now, Indianapolis, I was there for the NFL Combine. It was awesome. I mean, I had a good time. I was there the whole week. Food was cool. I ain't gonna say it's just outstanding, but it was cool though. It had some cool spots around there, and I ate some good food, and things like that the entire time there. Now, is it like super, super memorable? Nah, I can't say it's super, super memorable, but it was good food. It was good food. Nashville, of course, I live here, so we got the hot chicken, we got the fish sandwiches, we got all that stuff. I'm so used to it. And it's a lot of good different options of food here in Nashville. So I can already say I enjoy that. I even go to places that, I live here and I go to places for the first time still. So I enjoy the food there. Houston, man, I enjoy the food in Houston as well. I mean, you got the Tex-Mex, you got Trail Burgers with Bun B. You got all these different spots there in Houston. I definitely enjoy the food. If I got to pick 2 places to go, and in Jacksonville, I will say I haven't had a chance to experience that one yet. So it's what it is there. I haven't heard anybody say, hey, woo, I got to go to Jacksonville for the food. I haven't heard that. But I will tell you that what I think in regards to food, give me Nashville and Houston. I'll definitely roll with both of those cities with the food. You got the hot chicken up here in Nashville. Prince's, by the way, that's the place you need to go to. I know everybody says Hattie B's, but Prince's is the original hot chicken in Nashville. That's the place you need to go first. But you got the hot chicken. You got all the different types of foods, whether it's Middle Eastern, Italian, German, whatever it is. You got all those different things here in Nashville. In Houston, you got the Tex-Mex. You got the Trill Burgers. You got all that stuff. And I will have to say, it's between those two. We're going to fight between those two is all I got on this one. All right. We have reached the end of the show. I want to thank you for tuning in to Touring the AFC South, episode 396. Hopefully I helped you get more knowledge on your quarterbacks in the division and try to figure out what's going on with them and what to look forward to in the 2026 season. Of course, if you want to find me on social media, you can find me on the artist formerly known as Twitter at Mike Patton 82. That's MikePatton 82. You can also find me on Blue Sky at the same thing right there. Also on Instagram and Threads, you can find me at that's THA, not THE _general_MP. Touring the AFC South is on all listening platforms, whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, you name it, we are there. And of course, you can find Touring the AFC South on YouTube at the Mike Patton Network. I want to thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Touring the AFC South. We're out. Peace.